So my house backs onto a small road that is parallel to a few large fields that are, momentarily, filled with large cows and a massive bull. This means that I haven't been able to walk my dog on there for a while, and instead I've started walking around the block with her. But really though, she needs to be able to run freely, so I decided last night, as it was a warm evening, I'd walk her up to the woods just past the old pit. Technically, you aren't supposed to be in those woods because, well, you have to walk across the privately owned pit land to access them. But the woodland itself isn't privately owned, so this being said, I was sure that I could let her off the lead and she could bolt around and burn off some excess energy. Now, the whole walk there was pretty much normal. The people I often see just jogging or walking their own dogs, waving at me. I waved back. I stopped and spoke to an old lady too who said that she had a dog just like mine. Walking across the pit was a little scary. It always is though. More just the thought of being caught by security guards or even just one of the local busybodies. Entering the woods was fine though, slightly slippery as I headed down into the slightly more dense woodland. And then me and my dog, finally made it to the walking path. I've lived in this neighborhood for 6 years and I have no idea where this path starts, finishes, or what it even is for. Something tells me though that it has to do with minecarts. There are a couple that are upturned and decorated with graffiti and shrubbery, planted in the forest ground near to the path. But last night, I wasn't in any rush, so I thought to myself, let's see where this takes us. I unclipped my dog's lead and she pranced off in front, stiffing from side to side and constantly turning back to see where I was. She had never been down there with me, the reason being that I'd only been down there as a teenager really, and hadn't been there for a couple of years at this point. But nevertheless, my dog was pretty inquisitive of her surroundings. She didn't stray off from the dirt pathway though. But we'd been walking down the track for about 15 minutes I think, and I was already kind of lost. I knew that I'd know where I was once we turned back though, and figured that a 45-minute walk was probably enough for her, so I called her and we turned directly around and started walking back in the same direction that we had just come from. But this is where things got a bit odd. So we reached a spider web of a crossroads that I hadn't noticed on the way there. There were 6 pathways that all met in that spot. 2 of them were very close together, and I had no idea which path I had previously walked down. I looked down both paths, trying to familiarize myself with them, but I couldn't. I decided that I should probably go down to the left path. The reason for this is that the pit was on my right while I was walking down the path, so it made sense that it would be on the left walking back up. But left was more logical in my mind. Confused and slightly spooked though, we continued walking, and I only became more confused and freaked out. Because I noticed a couple of times a woman's clothing just hooked on a tree. It was something lacy, like a blouse or a pair of tights and a pair of panties, and I thought it was gross at first, but then my mind started asking, why? Why were they there? Who left them there? I called my dog and hooked her up on the lead, and I held her close. I was almost running at this point. Something bad was just in the air, and I could feel it in my stomach. When I heard sounds from the trees and saw shadows in the corner of my eyes. All of them could have been nothing, I admit. Animals, bushes, literally just my mind playing tricks on me. But then I heard a faint whimper coming from the direction that we were heading. My dog's ears perked up too, and she began to whine, and then again a moan, like whoever it was could have been in pain. I crept forward, but the sound continued, getting louder, turning into a more aggressive cry, but no words. Nobody asked for help or shouted hello. I was very scared, obviously, and I was frozen, pretty much solid. I grabbed my phone, though, and I pressed the unlock button so I could then click the emergency call button on my lock screen, if I needed to. And I shouted, in confusion and fear, hello? Nobody replied, though. And instead, there was a guttural scream. It was definitely a woman, and her scream was ear-piercing, but drew total silence after it. But then, she wailed even louder, and then again and again and again, and at this point, I had tears in my eyes, and I just ran straight out of there. The sound felt like it was getting closer and closer too, like I was running toward it. But I didn't want to run away into the woods where I would definitely get lost. I just ran and ran down this path, and I swear that my eyes were closed the whole time because the last thing that I remember was seeing the red light atop of the lighting mast attached to the pit building. I ran up the rocky banking and bolted through the chain link fencing. I took a moment to breathe and to calm down, to try and logically explain what had happened. But to be honest, I just couldn't. In the end, I called the cops as well. I don't think I could have slept without calling them. They called back this morning and reassured me too that they didn't find anything, not even the clothing that I saw. It was the summer of 1974. My aunt had come over in her Volkswagen Beetle to ask us kids if we wanted to go and see Herbie Rides again at the theatre. We were all pretty excited about seeing the movie and riding in a new purple VW, so the answer was definitely yes. The ride there wasn't as fun as I imagined it would be though, because my aunt was driving a stick shift for the first time. But after the stressful ride, we made it to the theatre. We got our refreshments and even talked my aunt into letting us sit in the balcony. I got my usual, sweet tarts and a large pop. I shouldn't have got that pop because I couldn't finish the movie without having to go to the bathroom. And sure enough, before the movie was halfway through, I got that urge to go. Missing part of the movie, though, was only a small part as to why I didn't want to go to that bathroom. The biggest reason was that it was in the basement of the building, and it was just a scary place to me. Almost every time that I'd gone down there before, too, I was always alone. The stairway went right down to the last few steps at the bottom where it turned 90 degrees to the right. After turning at the bottom of the stairs, there was a large lobby there, and it was beautiful with ornamental chandeliers and stonework and the whole thing. Not a place you would think of as eerie or creepy, I suppose, but for some reason it was always just scary to be down there alone. One thing that I had noticed while being down there was that I couldn't hear the movie down in that lobby unless it was a very loud part. But when I got into the bathroom and closed the door, it sounded like the party was going right on outside that door. The sounds never sounded like the movie at the time, though. I always tried to just hold it until the end of the movie when there would be others down there when I went, but this was just one of those times that I couldn't wait. So I went to the basement stairway and I noticed a boy about my age turning into the lobby at the bottom of the stairs. He had straight blonde hair and was wearing a light blue shirt and black pants. I was really happy to see him going down there, if I'm being honest, since I didn't have to be alone down there. I skipped stairs going down as quick as I could. I figured that he would almost be going into the restroom when I got to the lobby. I got down to the lobby, and when I did, there was nobody there. My excitement was turned to fear at that moment. I hesitated for a few seconds and wondered how he could have gotten into the bathroom before I got down to the lobby. From the bottom of the stairs to the bathroom door was twice the distance that it was from the top of the stairs to the bottom, and I practically ran down those stairs. I rationalized that he must have ran to the bathroom or went into the women's restroom or something. I really didn't think that he went into the women's restroom, so I was going with the idea that he must have run. I went into the bathroom, though, figuring that I would see him in there, but when I did, there was nobody there. I was really scared, but I just couldn't convince myself that he didn't go into the women's restroom. That was the only thing that made sense. So I finished my business as quick as I could, flushed, and I started washing my hands. And while washing my hands, one of the toilets in the stall flushed. And at first, I felt relieved because this meant that the boy was in there and I just didn't see his feet under the stall. But after a few seconds, when I didn't hear anything else and he didn't come out, I went over toward the stall and I asked if anyone was in there. I didn't get a response, so I walked closer to the stalls and noticed that the stall doors were open and there was nobody in either of them. It was now that I immediately ran out of there and back up to the movie. For the rest of the movie, I was looking all through there for the boy that I saw on the stairs instead of watching the movie. And I didn't see him anywhere there. When the movie was over too, I watched everyone coming out to see if he was there, but he wasn't. And I guess that I can be grateful that At least the ride home wasn't as scary as it was getting there after that. And that was the only time that I think that I have ever seen an apparition in my life. As a young kid, I lived in a city with my single mother. She had me at 17, so she and I have a lot of the same interests, and she's a very caring and loving mother. Never blamed me for ruining her life or anything like that. It was a pretty good childhood, if I'm being honest. She ran into an old friend, though, when I was 9 or so, and married him about 8 months later. Well, we fixed up his city house and sold it to move into a bigger house in the country. Now, this house is a nice house. It wasn't sold cheap like in the movies to try and trick people with a low price tag into buying a haunted house or anything. We got about 100 acres of dense forest, in fact, and the house was bought from an old man whose wife died a year earlier and wanted to move to a trailer park. I didn't get to see the house until after they bought it. Biological dad was driving me home after the weekend with him, and I was like, "Where are you taking me?" And when I walked into the place, it immediately just gave me a really bad vibe. My room had a high-angled ceiling, and at night in the country dark, I thought that I saw figures on the ceiling. Now, I wasn't an idiot. I knew your mind could play tricks on you, especially at night. I figured that it was just my imagination. I would start to hear walking in the night, on the roof of my room or in the hallways. I started sleeping with my radio on, so I didn't have to hear it. I would also wake up with bruises on my limbs sometimes looking like fingers, and sometimes like I just got smacked. And then my mum got pregnant with my brother, and it was not a pleasant one. He was born at 6 months, and my mother nearly died from hemorrhaging. She was told that she couldn't have children anymore, and also couldn't breastfeed my brother, as she did for me. But I was about 12 now, and my mum fell asleep on the couch with my 3-month-old brother. And at the time, a random fire just started against the wall that she was sleeping by from the outside. The fire department said that it was because we didn't put out our campfire, but we hadn't had one in weeks, and it rained heavily the night before. Plus, the fire started in the front of the house, and we had our fire pit in the back. All of this meant that the addition to the house was lost, and we stayed in the original part until it was rebuilt. But during this time, the events happening to me got more severe after this. At one stage, people thought that my parents were beating me. I had so many bruises. I just wore jeans year-round so that no matter how hot it was, nobody would see it. But one of the worst was that I just felt cold fingers touching me, often too, even when I wasn't alone, and the left half of my bed was now always cold too. My parents say that no events happened to them, and they chose to believe the fire department about the fire, so I just kept things to myself and told people that I must be hitting myself in my sleep to get the marks or something. But the creepiest thing that has ever happened was when I had to move back in after college. But they had a dog now, a huge thing too, and I was going to bed around 4 a.m. and left my room to turn off the light. My stepdad always forgot it. I turned off the last one and was walking back to my room, and I brushed past the dog. I pet him in the dark and then continued to my room, which is at the top of the stairs. I looked to the bottom of the stairs and I saw that my dog was sleeping there by the nightstand. And if he was there the entire time, then what the hell did my pet? This happened about 14 years ago. My boyfriend and I went to a graveyard one night because he had told me a story about how he had seen something there. He didn't really want to take me, but I insisted. He said that he had heard stories about the place, and if you go there and sit every night, you'd eventually see it. He said that he'd finally seen the thing himself on the 3rd or the 4th consecutive night that he visited, and it was like a man-like thing and grey, but he only caught a glimpse of it and never went back afterward. I remember him saying that he had car trouble when it appeared also, and well, I just couldn't resist. I wanted to see it for myself. And it was on the 3rd night that we saw it. We were sitting in the dark with the moon being the only source of light. Man, we were dumb. And we both suddenly got creeped out for the first time since we had been visiting the place. We changed our minds about the whole thing, and we decided to leave and just never come back, but lo and behold, the car, my car that has never had any trouble before, and not again for years after this incident, wouldn't start. My boyfriend was driving that night and kept trying, and it did eventually start up. When the headlight came on full force, we saw it, standing right in front of the car. It was about 7 feet tall, and it was completely grey. In fact, it looked like a moving statue to me, kind of. It was kind of bent over, just looking into the windshield at us, and we freaked the hell out. It kind of shifted, and the car finally started. The thing darted off to the left so quickly that I knew that if it came to the side the windows were both on, that we would both be dead within a minute. It was so fast that it's hard to explain, but it just stood to the side of the car watching us as we drove away. The cemetery was laid out where the gravel road, old country, cemetery kind of road, went around the whole graveyard in a circle and looped back around, so the entrance is also the exit. We were honestly spinning tires and slinging gravel the whole way around, but when we passed the place where the thing was, it hadn't moved. It had been standing there just watching us go around the gravel circle, and it apparently just let us leave, but it was looking directly at me, the passenger side of the car that was facing it. And at this stage, I couldn't really make out any features because it was so dark, but I was overcome with the most severe depression that I've ever felt in my life in that moment when I was looking back at that thing. It was like everyone and just everything that I cared about in my whole life was burnt right before my eyes. The pain and the hurt was almost tangible, and it took my breath away in that moment. That night, when I was home and finally able to somehow sleep, I had a dream that this thing was calling me from that graveyard, begging me to come back. That it was harmless and miserable, stuck in that old cemetery forever, and it was alone, so alone. When I woke up, I was determined to go back to find the creature, but before I could even tell my boyfriend, I got calls from him and 2 of my best friends. And all 3 of them had had nightmares where this thing had brutally murdered and mutilated me. The 2 girls who called me didn't know anything about the graveyard incident the night before. It was so late when I got back home that I didn't tell anyone about it. Just went to bed, and my boyfriend dreamt that I had gone back to the place because I felt bad for it, so he drove out there after me. When he got there, he found the thing ripping me apart apparently and tearing me open. For a long time, I had dreams about it too, saying that I won't hurt you, please come back and help me, I'm suffering. And for a while, I had to fight the urge to go back, even after people told me about their nightmares where I would die. I guess it faded with time and kids and adulting, but I do think about it often, and I do kind of still get a bit of an itch just to drive through, and I don't know. It would be dumb as hell, I know, but there's always been a little nagging voice that whispers about the thing that we saw that night. It had a masculine physique, but no genitalia, and its eyes were completely black, so no iris or pupil or anything. Just black, inky nothingness. I've been searching all these years, but the only pics that I've seen that look even remotely like it are kind of like Wendigos, but not the ones with like fur or antlers, just a greyish humanoid sexless thing. The best way that I could describe it actually is that it actually looked like a statue to me. Does anyone have any ideas of what this might be? It's bugged me for damn near 2 decades now, and any suggestions would be appreciated. G'day mates, it's Busta here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you would like to help me out, then please go ahead and watch another video by clicking on a card on the screen. As always guys, thanks for all the love and support, and I'll see you mates in the next one.